Welcome back to Cancer and Peace. My name is Sean Stewart, and I'm here with our host, Peter Scalzo, and we're going to do part 2 of Cancer as a Journey of Wisdom. And in wisdom, there's a lot of peace. And last time we went to this James 3:17 passage, and we talked a lot about those characteristics. And so we wanted to finish that list and just talk about how those characteristics show up in your life on a cancer journey. I think that was our the path we were on. And producer Jack had kicked this off, so I am gonna weave this in to start with a little bit. Was we had talked about somebody being torn to and fro, and I started the podcast last time a little bit about, hey, you had a lot of stuff going on in your life, and let's touch on that a little bit, because when you're in this journey, the number of things that are heading your way are so immense. It's easy to be pulled around a little bit. And so then I want to go back and look at this verse. But you and I had talked a lot about, getting so much information thrown at you. I like to think about it as in the form of narrative. We all have, I think it's one of my favorite quotes that came out of Failure of Nerve, this book that was out there, and it was understanding, and I'll talk about the example that's given in the book, and it was that if you were a new medical resident, just coming out of school and you wanted to keep up with, be current in medicine, and you made a decision that you're going to read 2 research journal articles a day just to try to stay current, that in 1 year you would be 100 years behind. And the thought process, like, you have so much data that's coming to you. What do you do with that? It's like drinking out of a fire hose. And the answer to that is, in one sense, and I'm going to get back to your narrative, is we have to interpret that data through a lens that in humans, we call this our narrative, the story we live our life by. And so we have a story that interprets this. And if our story gets out of whack, it can lead us into a bad place. And that's why this is important to think about it from a terms of wisdom, because wisdom is interweaved into the story we live our life by. And so I'm going to go back to you. And it's like, hey, as a cancer patient, you have so many things coming towards you, and you and I have talked about instances, and I'm going to ask you if you'll tell about one of those that happened recently, where information, ideas, thoughts about, the right way to go is coming at you at such a speed, and you need to have wisdom and a story that you lived your life by that is really well grounded. That's really well connected. So that's my intro. Yeah. And so I thought maybe you could help us out a little bit here.
No, that's great, because people do speak out of their narrative, right? And so with well-meaning people, whether it's coworkers at the time or people of faith, community within the church, or just friends and family, a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about cancer, and they've either experienced it themselves or they've been touched by it. But especially cancer treatment, really interesting. The spectrum is just amazing, because someone well-meaning may have a belief that you can't trust the medical community at all. No trust. I don't go to a doctor unless I absolutely have to. There is a cure for cancer, and the medical community has hidden that cure because it's a huge moneymaker, and the pharmas and everyone else. And so all the way to a person who just basically recommends one hospital, one doctor, one place. This is the answer. And along that spectrum is alternative therapies, like, have you checked out this place in Mexico? Have you gone to Europe? Have you tried this supplement? Have you tried this particular food? One person came to me once and said, music heals cancer. Do you listen to this particular type of music? And then the faith community adds the whole dimension of faith. Your faith can make you well. And do you really have the right kind of faith to make you well? And so if you're a cancer patient, you're like, oh my gosh, what? It really forces you to say, what do I really believe in? What path am I going to take?
Yeah, that can be really confusing.
Really confusing.
As you start out with that much fire hose of ideas
Yep.
coming at you
Yep.
to drink out of that as if it's a water fountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you're just going to be blasted in your
Yeah.
face. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a temptation to be overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a temptation to try everything. Well, anything that comes my way, I'm going to go down that path. And I think you've had to learn that.
Yeah. One of my, like one time I was being prayed over by elders in the church, and I had a tough diagnosis, basically told to do an end of life process. And they held a prayer vigil for me in the prayer room 24 hours. And one of the elders just looked at me with panic in his face saying, have you tried everything? Have you really tried everything? Right. Mm-hmm. And I listened, and I looked at him and I said, no, and I'm not going to. This will not define my life. This will not be my full-time job.
Can I just stop? That is wisdom.
Looking
This is
for
an
cancer
example
cures.
of
Yeah.
wisdom. What you just said was, so I want you to keep the story, but I just wanted to highlight your ability to go, no, and I'm not going to, was a place of great wisdom. Keep going with the story. I don't mean to,
Okay.
I just
No,
want
I
to
didn't
highlight
think of it like that. But
when you think about wisdom, that is a moment of wisdom.
Yeah. And I just said, God's in charge of my journey. And I'm not going to have regrets. I'm not going to look back and say I should have done X, Y, and Z. I'm open to all ideas, but I have a particular pathway that I believe God has given to me. But the one thing was this: I will not be consumed by trying to get well in this cancer journey. To me, it was about riding along the journey that God had for me. And he had a lot of things to show me within the cancer journey. And it really didn't have much to do with physical healing. I experienced the physical healing that my doctor said was a miracle. But it was never about, oh, you have to get this physical healing. It was about, I'm going to journey on this thing with Christ and just learn and suffer with him and do those things that I needed to do with him to grab a hold of Jesus and just ride it.
Yeah, there's something that's the tension that I hear too, that I want to just, in your own personal life, I see a tension, and that is, you described a faith journey. You've also described a medical journey. And then somehow in where you're at today, I see the two weave together. And that is, you were sent home and told to call hospice, get your affairs in order. And in the midst of that, there are no other options. A medical option did come along, and that was, hey, there's a immunotherapy treatment that is new that fits your particular type of cancer for somebody who has high-grade urothelial bladder cancer, right? Is what this was.
With poor kidney function,
with poor kidney function.
It's the only thing there.
And so you went down that road as a medical option, and some months later, how long was it since you had the experience where you were and the doctor was like, "There's no more tumor"? How long was it?
About 6 months.
6 months. That's what I thought. And so in that period of time, but your doctor didn't say, "Look what we did with our medical treatment."
Right.
Your doctor said, "It's a miracle.
Right.
The tumor is gone."
Yeah.
And in some sense, it was both.
Mm-hmm.
You stepped into a medical treatment, and miraculously you're here many years later after being told to go home, that your life was going to be really short. And I think that's important for us just to digest. There's a level of wisdom of not pursuing everything, but also not pursuing.
Right.
And both of those are a tension that have to be walked through. There's wisdom in understanding, hey, should I pursue this option? Because you've sat here and told me a number of examples of people telling you. In fact, would you tell the story of recently you were at a meeting and somebody came up to you and asked about a doctor?
Whether or not I knew a certain doctor that focused in holistic remedies, alternative remedies. And when I said I hadn't heard of that name, that person acted like I had just missed everything. Like how could you not know this? And, I wish I had told you sooner. You would have avoided all this unnecessary pain and suffering. And I listened, and then I had to speak into that situation. And I said, you really should not ever say that to a cancer patient, that they've missed the mark. You can say, hey, I heard about this thing. Have you thought about it? You're going to research it, but I am praying for you. It's that, I think one of the things that I struggle with is that, and I'm going to say we right now rather than I, but we seem to know what God wants. We seem to know what God's plan is for a person's life. And I don't know what God's doing in that person's life. Physical healing may not be his plan for that person. I do know that God wants to do a unique transforming work in that person, because that's how God operates. But I don't know if God wants to heal them physically.
I'm going to go back to something you said a second ago that it stuck out. I wanted to come back to, but I didn't want to interrupt you, because you said, hey, if you'd have gone down this road, this was the perception or maybe the actual words, I'm not sure, but if you'd have gone down this road, you would have avoided unnecessary pain and suffering.
Right.
And there's a big assumption there.
Yes.
Is that pain and suffering is unnecessary. Right. And yet in our last episode, we talked about wisdom, and I made at least a question, a hypothesis, and I don't know whether it's true or not, so it's a hypothesis, but all wisdom comes through pain and suffering.
Right.
Great wisdom is learned in trials, storms, and suffering, not in a pleasurable ride in the car or feeling fun about something.
I mean, the only time in Scripture, I believe, where it says Jesus learned something, it says Jesus learned obedience from what he suffered.
Yes.
I mean, I don't see, he already knows everything, other parts in Scripture, but he learned something through what he suffered.
So if you want to prove my hypothesis wrong, then come up with an example where somebody learned through great pleasure, wisdom. If you get to that, then we'll call it a disproved hypothesis. But right now, I'm moving it closer to theory. I don't know. This is a scientific method, so you'll have to just bear with me a bit.
Yeah.
Well, this is it's going to sound like it doesn't tie, but I think it will, because the next item on our list from the passage that we were reading was this James 3:17, and it was talking about wisdom from above is first of all pure. It is all peace-loving, gentle at all times, and the next part of it was and willing to yield to others. And that is wisdom, a willingness to yield to others. Mm-hmm. And so I heard tensions in what we just talked about, and it was the tensions of others coming with ideas and thoughts, and you missed it, Peter. And then I also heard, hey, you were willing to listen to, there's a medical treatment you should do, and you entered into it. And in that, God worked a miracle. And you're sitting with us here today because there's been a lot of yielding going on to a medical journey. You've been yielding to procedures and all the things that have to happen for you to survive. In fact, I think we had a conversation this morning beforehand, and if it's okay for me to talk about your medical journey a little bit, without it was, you may have to go and start dialysis. And there's a bit of yielding inside of that. Is like, hey, if this is the next step, because my kidney functions are poor, you can yield to that. Right. And you're willing to go down that road because there's something there that will benefit your life.
Right.
And so how do you take into this willingness to yield to others and interpret that in wisdom?
I think implied in yielding to others is the fact that, am I willing to listen? Now, a prideful, arrogant person does not listen because they have all the answers, right? A prideful, arrogant has all the answers, and so they yield to no one. They do what they think is right, and that's it. But I think yielding to others doesn't mean that you put your established belief that you have to the side and just do whatever that person wants. That would be people-pleasing kind of a thing, codependency. So I think what it means is that I do have firm beliefs about my cancer journey, treatment, and all that. But I am willing to listen to what others have to say, and willing to participate in the choices they make, even though it might not be the choice that I want to make. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I'm, because my purpose would be just to love on them and to be a partner for them in any way that I can. I've had people come up to me before in church saying, hey, I was just diagnosed with prostate cancer and I've decided to do this God's way, which I don't even know what that means half the time, but I guess what they meant was alternative vitamins and supplements, because that's what they did. Because this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, that God to me reveals science to us for a particular reason, like immunotherapy and the proteins wrapped around cells, PD-L1, PD-1, and what my particular immunotherapy drug does with the T cells. It unwraps some of these proteins. I mean, who would have, 100 years ago, they wouldn't even know what that was.
Can I just say, huh?
But that's how the treatment works,
Yes.
and it actually works. My immune system is beating up the cancer because of this scientific research and revelation. But anyway, that's an aside. But I did say to this person, listen, we have a major medical cancer center. All they focus on is cancer. They're number 1 or number 2 in the world, and they're an hour away from our doorstep. If you ever want to go and get a second opinion, hear another point of view, I will go with you. No problem.
Yeah, that's such a good share. I love the fact that you're sharing it, and there's wisdom. What I love about the fact that you're willing to share your own journey is there's wisdom. And the wisdom that I heard was you listen to others when they have something. When somebody says, hey, I have something, and you'll listen. Right. But you're not pulled to and fro by everything that you hear. You also recognize that that whenever I hear God's way, as you're saying, there's something that my ears go, huh? You think you know the way, God's way. And I think that's an interesting thing. Scalzo talks about using God to run from God as a concept. And so whenever somebody speaks about they know God's way or his will for your life, I think it might be the closest. I get really concerned because it's potential of using God's name in vain. Because unless you have some inner circle that you are the chosen one, that you're hearing directly from God about Peter's cancer journey, you might be using God's name in vain. Yeah. And so check yourself at the door. But there's a flip side of this I think is important, that I think I heard you describe, and I think it's really important also, and that is what it means to yield to others. And I don't know where I heard this quote from, but it's such an important one. And so I'm not going to be able to give it proper credit, but I've used it before, and I really like it. As this person was talking, and they said they had a shelf of books that we're sitting in a library right now, and one of the shelves that they had in their personal library was a shelf of books that had changed their mind about something. And it's such a great concept. It's like, I'm willing to listen to others and willing to have my mind changed about something. And the person went on to say one of their favorite things was to have their mind changed about something, to learn something new, to recognize that, hey, I can adjust my narrative when there's something that's powerful enough and so well, connected that my mind actually does need to change. I once thought the earth was flat, and now I recognize that, hey, I'll have my mind changed, that it's round, that kind of concept. Yeah. That when we're willing to allow our minds to be changed about something, and that we find joy in that, not, oh, I was wrong. I was so competitive that nobody can tell me anything. Yeah. Those are the two tensions that are out there. Is I'm not tossed to and fro. Right. Maybe it's just one shelf of books on my bookshelf, but my mind is open to listen and to connect and to have my narrative examined. Right. That's such an important part. And I think it's what it's talking about, is willing to yield to others.
And I think there's, in order to counteract arrogance, there usually is some kind of a layer of truth. Like, for instance, the premise that the medical community wants to hide the cure for cancer, right? Somehow there's this conspiracy going on. Now, does pharma exert a lot of influence for profit? I think that's probably an absolute, right? That they influence doctors and they influence drugs and stuff because they make a certain amount of profit on it. So that is an insidious kind of thing within the medical industry, right? But every medical doctor I've ever run into that's worked on my cancer, I know that if they had the cure for cancer, they would do it right then. I know that they don't take any glory in watching me suffer through surgeries and treatments and everything. And, so it's that kind of an analysis of like, wait, let's just step back a minute before we make pronouncements and listen to both sides and just, take it easy when we're doing something like that.
I think wisdom tries to understand that there are multiple sides. There's tensions, there's things like that. And what I hear you talking about is, I'm going to say there is no field of practice, no field of medicine that evil hasn't influenced, meaning that we know that there is evil and that there are people who withhold. My goodness, we had the Tuskegee example where that was evil. And there are a lot of different examples where evil has, infiltrated into areas that we know are good. I think the tendency is to take those examples and make it all bad or it all evil. Right. And wisdom says no, recognizing that the medical community and the advance of science is not all evil, that there's some of that is just God's goodness, but that evil is still out there and it is influencing different areas. And the ability to understand that is a place of wisdom. And I think knowing that in your cancer journey, it helps you to not move into the land of absolutes.
That's
this
a great way to say it.
This is all bad or this is all
good.
That's
a great way to say it.
No, I actually need to take
It's like
time.
AI right now,
Yes.
Is it all evil or what's the deal?
Evil certainly wants to use AI. Yeah. Are there great uses for AI? Yes, there are.
Yeah.
But it's hard to know, how to navigate some of these difficult areas.
Right.
Well, that's excellent as a thought process. That's the willingness to yield to others of talking about that. I like those examples. This is the next line. It is full of mercy. This is wisdom is full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. Wisdom is full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. So in your cancer journey, do you see how it has made you full of mercy and good deeds?
I mean, I think that mercy is about empathy and compassion, and to give people a break and to enter into their space with them and participate. And that's been my MO. I mean, ever since day one, it's been my MO, even down at Sloan. I just had that wired within me. It's not something that I produced on my own. I just feel like it's like I'm in battle with this person and I'm not going to leave them wounded on the field. I'm going to come back and bring them out of the field. And I think that just the whole cancer support group, even doing a book, I didn't have any plans to do that. I never had any plans to speak, never had any plans for this. All of it has been in response to people saying, would you do this? Would you do that? Would you do the other thing? And I think it's not that I have this specialized knowledge in this stuff. It's that I'm willing to open up vulnerably and talk about, a pain and suffering journey. And I'm willing to talk about my relationship with Jesus and recovery and also provide hope, hope in God, whether that's a physical healing or it's a taking someone to heaven. But there's the hope piece is that God will walk with you in this journey, even when it doesn't feel like He is. And then I think the fruit is that those kinds of things, those kinds of ways we come alongside, like within the cancer support group. Even recently, someone had a multiple myeloma diagnosis. I called one of our people that had that. They were happy to call that person and to give them advice and pray for them and all that. They were happy to get into the trench with them. And so anyway, I think that's what it means. But
well, one of the things that's interesting about your cancer journey to me, and it says it's full of mercy and fruit of good deeds, is that you started out as an attorney, so clearly you were evil. And
oh my gosh,
producer Jack is laughing at me over here. It's like, well, I'm going to speak in absolutes for a second. Aren't all attorneys evil? Still
Lord
laughing over there. I don't know why. But we're not supposed to use absolutes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well,
not with that.
But if you think about what your cancer journey did, and it's actually not all attorneys are evil, I recognize that. But
yeah.
But being funny for a second, and now back to serious. Your life has moved from being focused on a career and pursuing wealth and all the things around the daily rigors to cancer has meant that your life is now all about ministering to others. Your entire life is helping guys in recovery and people on their cancer journeys. Your entire life. So much of it now is focused. You have no career that you're focusing on. And because of cancer, this painful, hard, nasty journey, nasty in that it's, what it's done to you, your body, how it's wrecked you.
Yeah.
So that journey has moved you to a place where you have a ministry of mercy to others. How many people have you done into life journeys? How many people have you taken for opinions and second opinions and down for their treatments? And how many hours of cancer support interactions and over again? And even this podcast is an example. And I just sense that when someone's on their cancer journey, they recognize it's opening a door of new mercy, mercy ministry. That's what's happened in your life. And I think it might be an invitation for most people that are in their cancer journeys to open a new door of mercy from the wisdom that they're gaining in their suffering. So it's just great to see that. Not great to see the suffering, but great to see the wisdom and the ministry opportunity that flowed on the backside. Just to be clear that I don't think anybody wants to make grandiose your suffering.
Yeah.
But it's great to see that the suffering has purpose and meaning and what it's done.
And I see it in the context of our 12-step recovery group that we do, because someone who struggles with alcohol will gain healing through 12-step work and through their relationship with Christ, but then they'll sponsor someone else and come alongside them and use whatever wisdom they've received regarding that journey, they'll give to the next person out of mercy. Yeah. Like, I was helped, now I'm going to help you.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, it might answer this next question. I'm curious because this last item here that was on the list before, there's kind of a closing verse there, and it says, "Wisdom shows no favoritism and is always sincere." How does that strike you, and do you see examples of that? And has the cancer journey impacted your thought processes about favoritism?
I mean, I guess, like in that culture of the day, there was almost like a caste system built in. And so although I'm not part of a caste system necessarily, I guess one could argue there is one in America based on income and demographics and stuff. But I think that, no matter who it is, I'm going to give them the same amount of attention. And it strikes me today, there's a lot of people that struggle with mental health issues. And I think one of the challenge for me is, am I willing to enter into the world of that person who struggles with mental health? It's hard for me. And am I drawing a favorite saying, no, I won't enter into their world, but I'll enter into someone who doesn't struggle with that? And I think the best thing for me besides cancer about coming alongside anyone is the recovery world, because the recovery world welcomes anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking today about the LGBTQ plus community all the way to whoever it is. We welcome everyone. You come no matter what. And I just love that.
The identity is as a fellow struggler.
Yes.
And when you recognize that you're
yes.
coming as a fellow struggler, there is no struggle that sets you. Struggle is the common unifier, brokenness,
Right.
neediness,
Right.
and desire for healing. That's good. I think that helps. And you're right in that sense, is the more needy you are, it's even in a sense of there's less favoritism that comes into that. It's an environment where we're all here together.
Yeah.
I like that for recovery. And I think in that sense, I do think that there's a community of fellow sufferers in cancer that you've experienced.
Yeah.
That it helps in so many ways. Probably moves you to sincerity. The thing that happens, I think, about sincerity is as there's clarity of cancer is a life and death struggle. And I think it moves you to sincerity also as this closes out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the highlight about this whole thing. And the last verse here, it just says, and those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness. And this whole journey of wisdom through your cancer journey, you're able to sow seeds of peace.
Yeah.
And you're reaping a harvest of those who are coming along on that righteousness that you opened up our last episode with, about saying, hey, my righteousness is in Christ. It doesn't come from inside of me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's critical. That's the cornerstone of the whole foundation to me, because if you try to build this on your own efforts within your own strength, it's a house of cards. But if you build a house of wisdom where Christ is the cornerstone, he's my higher power, I'm going to surrender and trust in him, then I think all that stuff is possible.
And this gets to that where we opened up today, is if you're drinking from a fire hose, facts and things coming at it, the starting point is who's your higher power?
Mm-hmm.
And what is he doing? Actually having the ability to slow down, sit still, be able to have times of silence and solitude, connect with him. And in that, he's going to bring perfect peace, perfect wisdom, understanding. He's not going to bring the 100 steps down the road. He's going to give you enough for today.
Yeah.
One step today, the ability to walk into that. And there's great wisdom into taking this journey one step at a time, trusting that he's going to make all things right in his time and in his way for his purposes. But it's a purpose that's greater than anything you could understand.
Yeah, just this morning on the way here, I have to do a procedure tomorrow and then one next Wednesday, but, and I was in a lot of pain driving, but it was, grant me the serenity to accept those things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
You asked for wisdom again.
Yeah.
That got you in trouble because that seemed to bring you into this cancer journey. I don't know, but
got you into trouble.
How wise is this to keep asking for wisdom? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's not wise to keep asking for wisdom.
I had to end on a lighter note today, but yes, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Just looking at what this passage says and just thinking about your own journey and how much wisdom I, as your friend, see it in your life. And so it may seem to others like, hey, maybe there's puffery going on. No, actually, I want to share just how much it's honoring where your journey's been. I know you're not trying to, but I, as your friend, can say, look, I see how God's used this cancer journey to bring about such great wisdom, understanding. These characteristics have shown up so much in your life.
Thank you.
and my encouragement to others that might be listening is that I think God's desire is to let this storm bring that same wisdom into your life, these same types of wisdom. And you may have more in certain areas than Peter, or you may have other strengths, but this isn't a journey of desperation. This is a journey of great joy and wisdom and peace that comes with wisdom that surpasses even our earthly understanding. And so that's my prayer today, is that these cancer journeys, the people that are going through it, would really be able to experience that peace that passes understanding and trust in the wisdom of God.
Great.
So that's our wrap for today.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
Thanks for listening.
Jack. Thanks, everyone.
If you want more resources, go to cancerandpeace.com and check it out. Peter has his book, and a lot of the things that we quote and talk about here are out there. So check it out, and we'll see you next episode. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.